One day had passed since my first job. I was in my private room at the Assamite stronghold counting out my pay, setting aside money for the tithe that the Assamites demand of their warriors. Of course, a majority of my tithe would take the form of the vials of blood my employer had provided. I paused, glancing away from the vials, to avoid the urge to open them and satiate my hunger. I glanced around the room, staring at the walls of carved stone, the desk I currently sat at, a small shelf of Assamite texts, a small cot in the corner with a small crate at the foot of my bed, where I kept my personal belongings, as well as the items I took from the men I struck down the night previous. Harlan had told me the rooms were built to be as Spartan as possible, partially in accordance with some of the more religious views the clan kept, as well as to push the clan members to take jobs to stave off boredom and the beast. To me, though, a man who had spent the last few months sleeping in ditches in terrible weather conditions, it may as well have been a 5-star resort. I finished sorting the funds right as a knock at the door broke the silence. I stood and opened the door to see Harlan waiting for me.
Good evening, Jose. Would you mind if I came in?
Of course. He strode in briefly, nodding at the stacks of currency on the desk.
I see you were successful. I am pleased to know you will be able to continue without my guiding hand.
Of course I will. I did learn from the best after all.
I wish that were the case, but nonetheless, a job well done.
I nodded, and suddenly his look changed. A look of a predator studying his prey. A look I had long since come to terms with as his pupil. But tonight, the look made me far more uneasy than it should have.
You are filled with rage again. Why?
The moment he said it, I too noticed it. I had been enraged for the entire day since I caught sight of that Nazi spy who met with my target. I considered lying. After all, from my perspective, Harlan had lied to me. But I thought better of it. I opened the chest, drawing out the envelope, which I had skimmed but found impossible to read due to not knowing German, and passed it to him. I found that on the man the Regent was set to meet. I thought you said Kindred didn't have a stake in the war. I watched Harlan take the file, slowly working through it as he replied.
Well, I must first apologize for my lack of clarity. I meant that our clan as a whole doesn't have a stake in it. I am personally not surprised the Sabbat are working alongside the Axis. And before you ask, we do not have a stake in the war, because the Council of Duat believe it is not our place to interfere in human conflicts.
He continued to flip through, taking great interest in the information contained. I waited, thinking of his words. On one hand, it made sense. Our clan was scattered, and our greatest strength was the lack of information about us, something a large conflict would ultimately compromise. But on the other hand, I remembered everyone who had refused action to help others in need, and the rage once again began to grow. Seemingly able to sense this, Harlan continued.
Jose, I understand your anger, but rage is another temptation of the beast, one that you must stave off at all costs.
I understand that, Harlan. I just wish there was something we could do.
Well, there is not something we can do. There is something you can do. For the most part, we are bound by the laws set by the Council. But if you are cautious and careful enough, and most importantly, follow the laws of Hakim, you may yet be able to act.
I was shocked by this response, as I had never heard Harlan speak so openly against any ruling of the clan. He slid the papers back into the folder and sealed it.
If you will allow me to hold on to these, I will happily reach out to my contacts in the area and find you some allies for whatever it is you would like to accomplish.
I paused. It was a welcome offer, but on the other hand, this seemed so out of character for Harlan. But why?
Why? Simply put, I too have distaste for the fascist monsters both amongst kind and kindred, and wouldn't mind both being taken down a peg. But I really must know that you will be cautious. If you were to get caught, both of us will be in an extreme amount of trouble with the clan.
I simply nodded, and Harlan smiled.
In that case, I will get you your names. I will see you in a little bit for the presentation of your tithe.
With that, Harlan strode out as gracefully as he entered. I sat there frozen, thinking on my next moves. In retrospect, I should have denied his offer, and investigated that folder myself. A decision that would have saved a lot of people's lives, including the lives of several of the future allies I would obtain in the coming days. But the past, unfortunately, is written in stone.